that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs. Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31, with Asmi Uba.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV, a program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV.
Hello and welcome to Bottom Line from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. I am Asmi Uba. On Bottom Line today, as Parliament amends sections of the country's 1991 Constitution, more debates and questions surround the outcome. Is this the outcome citizens were expecting? A lawyer and a civil society person will speak on the issue. Be with us for the next 1 hour as we delve into this and many more other issues on this edition of the program, Bottom Line. I am Asmi Uba.
Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policy.
Let's start the program proper. Don't forget you can watch this program on SLBC TV Channel 31 on our Facebook page SLBC TV. If you want to listen us on radio, you can listen us on 99.9 FM in Freetown, SLBC in Makeni, Pono, Kenemabo, and Kailabo. Let's start the program proper. What started from the late Dr. Peter Tucker took a critical twist and turn this last Monday as Parliament amended portions of the 1991 Constitution that has led to tongues wagging, pundits searching for theories to anchor their thoughts, political parties drawing battle lines, and the ordinary man in search of unanswered questions. The House spent a whole week debating the proposed amendments, while the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party supported the alteration of the electoral system from first past the post to proportional representation and 50+1. The APC stoutly opposed the above submissions by the Sierra Leone People's Party. What made the situation more tense was the walkout of the APC members of Parliament who described the process as variant with the Constitution and did not meet the two-thirds voting threshold the claimed Constitution stipulates. This division, right in the middle, has once more exposed the country to a serious constitutional challenge, more so when the Speaker upheld the position of the ruling benches and referred the matter to the Supreme Court, but with caveats that the court's opinion is to guide future discussions on the matter, but not this one that he had given his ruling on. Well, the Speaker's ruling. To get further discussion on this critical subject matter, I have two guests with me, Alfonso Spani from Human Rights Defenders Network and Victor Lansana, who is the Deputy Chair of Human Rights Commission of Sierra. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let me start with you, Alfonso Spani, from the human rights perspective. This is, when we talk about Constitution, it is human rights related. It is the #1 document in the country that guides everyone's behavior, including the president. Now, from the human rights perspective, what does this movement mean for Sierra Leoneans?
Well, it's a challenging moment for Sierra Leone because the Constitution is not meant for the ruling SLPP party or the opposition APC party. But the Constitution is meant for the entire population, the citizens of Sierra Leone. And it's meant for everybody. Even if today the ruling party, the SLPP is not in governance, tomorrow when they leave governance, it's the same Constitution they rely on for protection. So it is not only for them. So it's a challenging moment for now. And it is also disheartening that we are seeing two political parties that have witnessed, and also in the intro you started with making reference to Dr. Peter Tucker. And for these two political parties that witnessed one of the largest committee to review the country's constitution, led by the late Justice Kawa, where we have an 80-man member committee that went round the four corners of this country to engage, to discuss, to get the minds, to get the people's perception on how we want to see the Sierra Leone constitution to be. And they presented a comprehensive report that was submitted to the government, the former president, and then in 2013.
Okay.
So it's unfortunate we are now seeing this type of discussions or arguments emanating from who is right or who is not wrong from a document that has been presented, of which what they are discussing is part of the said document.
So is it more of politics or what that has taken the center stage in all these discussions and these debates?
Well, I will not subscribe entirely that it's more of politics, but it's more of a party interest.
I mean, what's the difference, party interest and politics?
Well, politics could be what they are doing, all is all politics. But the fact is that everybody has his own interest. It makes it more self-centered.
So what is the interest of the ordinary Sierra Leonean in all of this?
The interest of the ordinary Sierra Leonean is to see a constitution that protects every single citizen. And that aspiration was translated in the CRC report. And I think if you go to the CRC report, page 260, the issue of under the legislative structure, I think it's chapter 9, page 260, that is where they talk about the introduction of a proportional representation system. So it is in the CRC report. So this is not something new. I think what the two parties fail to do is to make sure that after the report has been presented to the former president, Ernest Bokoma, in 2013, they were supposed to popularize this report to every single citizen to understand that what they discuss is what has been translated into that single file document. This is what both two parties neglected. Instead, they were cherry picking.
Was it a missed opportunity by Ernest Bokoma?
It was a missed opportunity by Ernest Bokoma, and it's equally a missed opportunity by this current president.
I mean, how would you draw in the current president when he has come this far? His party has taken it to parliament, debates have been held, and I mean, now look at what is happening now.
Yeah.
I mean, we know there are now differences of opinion, the issue of 2/3 and what have you. We'll come to that later. But one would say, I mean, at least the president has come this far.
Yeah, he has come this far, but the fact is that it's also a missed opportunity because when he came to power, they came out with a white paper on this same constitution, for which they only identified areas that are of interest to the SLP. And if you look at the Justice Kawa Constitutional Review Committee, there are a lot of recommendations to transform our 1991 constitution to a democratic constitution. But they were just taking what is of an interest to them, both the APC and the SLP. So I will not give praise to anyone because the constitution, that recommendation came from the people of this country.
Okay, Alfonso, if I come to one dilemma that the country is in now was the way Parliament handled all of this, including the Speaker, for example, the issue of 2/3, not 2/3, single, I mean, by voice or majority and what have you, and you walk out by the opposition. I mean, that has widened the debate now. From your perspective, from the civil society point of view, did Parliament handle this whole situation the way it should have handled it?
No. The People's Parliament, there is all opportunity for both sides to have engaged and continue discussion. I will not say the APC has a responsibility. They also have their own rights to protest. But walking out of Parliament does not suggest the aspect of demonstrating your responsibility toward the people of this country. They should have waited in the Parliament, witnessed the process, vote against the process. It is recorded, so it's been on the record that the entire APC as a party in Parliament voted against. But walking out does not demonstrate.
Do you think if they had voted, anything would have changed?
It should be on record that they voted against. That's the principle. It's not about walking out of Parliament.
No, but I mean, even before they would have taken part in the voting, I mean, what brought the disagreement was whether 2/3 majority or simple majority.
Well, the 2/3 majority, since the Speaker has taken it to Parliament, to Supreme Court, because that's the role of the Supreme Court to interpret statutory provisions. They are fighting against Section 108 and Section 91. 91, simple majority, 108 about a 2/3 majority of members of Parliament. Whether the procedure in terms of the 2/3, because the course of the matter was they were discussing the issue clause by clause.
Yep.
If discussing parliamentary debates on the constitutional amendment provisions were being done on a clause by clause basis, does the 2/3 majority votes apply, or does the simple majority apply?
What's your thinking?
Or is it that the entire bill itself constitutes 2/3 majority?
What's your thinking?
My layman point of view is I cannot give any thought in it. I'm just bringing it, but that's the responsibility because I'm not a constitutional lawyer.
Okay. What a nice way to bring in. You want to set me up? You want to set me up? You know, I mean, thank you very much for being part of Bottom Line. I mean, Alphonsus ended in a very fine footing for you to come in. The issue of now you look at the debate has now shifted from what it was a week ago to what now obtains. Is this not part of the quagmire in this whole 1991 Constitution?
Well, thank you very much in the first place for having me in this studio. I was really very happy, excited the way how the whole issue of the constitutional debate itself started. For 2 weeks, Parliament was really very much dying, to make sure that members of the public could tune in, whether you are in your village or in Accra, in US, UK, China, wherever you were, you had the opportunity to actually tune in and see, the debates going on. And I also applaud them. Individual members of Parliament who did, thorough research. They were able to stand up and then debate the issue. Because we are tired of guns. We are tired of chaos. We are tired of bickering. What should actually be done is what we saw for 2 weeks. Although the climax of it became really a catastrophe, but we should be able to see intellectual debates, giving opportunity to Sierra-Leoneans to follow, to see exactly what the members of Parliament are doing, or Parliament as the body, is doing. So we commend Parliament in that regard. But then, like I said, the climax, the end of it all,
was not palatable.
Never palatable at all. So it was very ugly and very awkward, because one would have expected that members of the APC would have actually, like they had done throughout, they could have be there. They should have been there, make sure that they participate with the voting, because once you.
But if they had voted in that process, the issue of simple majority, then their argument was they would have legitimized a process that they had challenged. They had asked for the 2/3.
This is just the.
So voting for simple majority implies that they had given legitimacy to the simple majority, which they said the Constitution was not in support of that.
I was just trying to lay the foundation, for a broader discussion. I have said in another program that the APC, like any other political party who finds itself in Parliament, has the privilege, has the opportunity. It falls within their power to decide to sit in Parliament and not to participate actively. It also falls within their power to actually walk out of Parliament, when they think that issues are not going the way they want it. So it falls. We have to be very clear in that by way of a foundation statement.
Acted within the ambit of the law.
Yes, they did not do anything that is untoward, as far as the procedures are concerned. But whether that workout, represents what the people of Sierra Leone actually want, or those that they are representing, is, another discussion altogether. While I've stated that they have the right to have worked out, but then I would further say that workout was premature. The moment they worked out, or at the material time they worked out, that was not the time for them to have worked out. Because
when was the best time for them to have worked out?
It was when the speaker would have now put the question to the House whether the bill entitled Constitutional Amendment Bill 2025 should be made law, and by that time it should be by way of a two-thirds majority, of members of Parliament. But the stage at which actually they worked out was when there was a vote being taken on a particular clause of the bill. So that is where the argument actually centers, whether when you take a bill and begin to look at it provision by provision, and then pose a question to members of Parliament, to the well, to say, do you support this, or what do we do? Whether in fact it should be a simple majority or by two-thirds, So that was the problem.
That's the gray area that the Constitution is really unclear. Well, some say it is unclear, some say it is clear. So it all depends on the lens that one looks at it with.
Well, I would say it is unclear. I would even further say that there is no provision in the Constitution that addresses the issue as to whether a bill that is meant to actually amend or alter the Constitution should be in the first place read or votes should be taken, by point or clause by clause, and whether it should be by way of two-thirds majority or by a single majority.
Is it something the drafters of the 1991 Constitution did not foresee?
Hold on. There is no perfect law. It doesn't matter where you go, whether it's UK or America, wherever. That is why there is always a room for amendments and alterations, if you like. So what I was trying to say now, on the issue of the two-thirds, whether in the first place that provision by provision announced for voting should be done by way of a single majority or by two-thirds majority, I've said that there is no clear provision. In fact, there is no provision in the Constitution that says whether provision by provision should be done by way of simple majority or two-thirds majority. But I've had also argument from APC members of Parliament, to say because the amendment is not an ordinary amendment of a bill of an act of Parliament. This is really the Constitution, although the effect of itself at the end of the day is an act. But this has to do with the alteration the entrench clauses had been actually deleted. So Section 108, which had actually been the center of discussion, makes provision for two categories of clauses, of provisions. So there is the one we call the non-entrenched clauses, and then there is the other we call the entrenched clauses. The entrenched clauses, these are very special provisions that it does not take an ordinary amendment or alteration. It has to be very, very deliberate, very calculated, and it does not stop at the will of Parliament. It has to come out of Parliament, allow people to, the ordinary man who is qualified to vote for a member of Parliament, to vote in a referendum. So it ends up with a referendum where, ordinary Sierra Leoneans, we have to vote. But the non-entrenched clauses, is what subsection, paragraph B of subsection 2 of the 108 section actually envisages to say that if you are altering the Constitution, if you are amending the Constitution, a bill that is actually meant to amend or to alter the Constitution, which is a non-entrenched clause, it must be decided by way of two-thirds majority. But it does not say whether that same bill, when it is taken part by part or portion by portion, it should be decided by way of a simple majority or by way of a two-thirds majority.
Is that a lacuna?
I mean, definitely, I would see it as a lacuna because it now gives a latitude to the speaker or to whoever is deciding to say, I'm going to go by section 191, which talks about when there is a vote in parliament, you know, it should be by way of a simple majority, except where it is clearly provided in the constitution, you know, in other parts of the constitution, that this particular vote should be by way of two-thirds majority. So, for instance, we have section 29 that talks about, you know, this emergency, okay, where the president or where the nation is actually under imminent threats or war or outbreaks. Okay, so the president can come, there's an outbreak out there, we want to have parliament come back and look at these issues, or even to prolong parliament, there should be a two-thirds majority to decide that particular issue. But this one, although it is clear that the bill as a document taken as a whole, that is what we have to really get our people to understand. When we say a bill for an act of parliament, it means the document treated as a whole and not as portions of that document. There is a clear distinction. A bill, which is a document taken as a whole, if you want to make it to become law, there must be two-thirds majority. But the constitution falls short to determine whether, when that bill, you now begin to take portions of it, section by section, whether in fact a decision, you know, should be made by way of a simple majority or by way of two-thirds majority.
Okay, Alfonso, is that a loophole that the speaker saw and took his own decision that went in favor of the ruling MPs?
Well, I will not say probably it's a loophole, but I will not maybe something that the speaker make use of. The speaker makes use of what is available before him. So that was what he used. The unfortunate side is that I make a reference because what these two parties we are fighting for, this is something that has been embedded in the report since 2013. It is not an information that one party manufactured just the day they were discussing it. It is embedded in page 260 and 261 of the Justice Kawan Constitutional Review Committee report, the introduction of a proportional representation system. It is there. And so, to me, they are doing a disservice to the people of this country. And they are also doing a disservice to taxpayers' money, donors that invested a lot of money for us to do that Constitutional Committee report. Even the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, they place expert people to support the government in this regard. All those sectors, all those people, we are doing, the House of Parliament are doing a disservice to those sectors. And most importantly, they are doing disservice to us as a nation, because it is we, us, the people of this country, whose voices were collected during those periods, and they translated it into a codified document that was presented to the former president.
So has this created more division in the political lines?
Well, it has created division, more division in the political line based on party interest. Now they are not looking at it as a document. They are not looking at it as, this is my own way I want elections to take place. The APC will say, I want first party post. SLPP now is talking about PR system. But what, in law, we don't talk about assumption. We don't talk about speculation. We talk about the law and the facts. So what is before us is the document being presented to the former president. Let us go to that document. If there is anything about proportional representation system, then I think the House of Parliament are obligated to respect the views of the people of
so why is the APC in support of first past the post and the SLPP against it, and the SLPP is in support of PR and the APC is against it?
Well, I don't know. They have their own view, but what I'm subscribing to is what is before us. What we have agreed upon when we have the 80-man committee, except for 19 people that did not sign that document. 19 people out of the 80, so 61 signed to that document. and a number of APC members, supporters, parliamentarians, and that we are part of that committee, signed to that secret document that it's a blueprint for our new constitution. So any changes from that, any diversion from that particular document, it's a disservice to the people of the state.
Another critical question citizens have asked is, are we going to see the review of this overhauling of the total 1991 constitution before 2028 or by 2028?
I do not envisage that, because
so
by next year we will be talking about elections. Everybody will now be thinking of that is why this current government, they are just fishing out in that document to address issues that relates to elections, because by the African charter on the democracy and elections,
yeah, you should have
yes, exactly.
Don't touch the laws.
Exactly. So that's what they are now doing. So that's what I started saying. Despite the President Bio started doing something, but the both of them, the two parties, they don't do justice.
So meaning the 1991 constitution is going to outlive President Bio. So even after President Bio, we are still going to have this same 1991, but with amendments.
Yes, few portions, segmented amendments based on what they have interest on. And there was all opportunity from President Bio to have start this discussion since his first term in office. So that will have given him an opportunity to discuss all these issues. But they were short-sighted based on what they think of what I would say is their most personal interest. That is what they translated into a white paper.
Okay, that's I remember a few weeks ago I hosted you. I mean, when you said law and politics are intertwined. You said law starts from politics, and you gave the example of cabinets where everything is hatched, is made, and before it even goes to parliament. So you can't talk about law without talking about politics. Now the question is, the 1991 Constitution, I started my intro with Dr. Peter Toka, late Justice Edmond Kawan, President Kaba, President Koma, and now President Bio. From the look of things, this question is going to outlive President Bio. Even after his presidency, we are going to have the 1991 Constitution, but with some amendments. Is that a good sign for our democracy?
Well, I agree. I would say that it is highly unlikely that the holistic review of the Constitution would have been completed before President Bio exits presidency, and that would be really a wasted opportunity. That was why when this whole discussion started, this discussion about this amendment bill, I had been referring to it as a piecemeal amendment. I would have actually loved the opportunity for us to take the entire constitutional review and process forward, and then complete the whole journey. It has been like 30 years journey that we have been into since 1996 when we started reviewing this constitution. But then you see, politicians normally they have their own desires. So you will see that following the 2023 elections, APC they were dissatisfied with the outcome, but then they refused to use the legal procedure set out in the Constitution to challenge the outcome of an election, presidential election in the Supreme Court. They did not. They decided to opt for the political settlement angle. So, and then at the end of the day, both political parties, the APC and the government of Sierra Leone, both of them went to a very small room at the exclusion of the rest of Sierra Leone society, and then said, okay, let us have a national unity document, and then later, okay, let us set up a committee that will be referred to as tripartite committee. Thereafter, they produced a report where they now began to say, there are recommendations in that tripartite report, so let us begin to amend, let us begin to execute or implement them. That was actually what gave birth to this amendment bill. So they now forgot everything about the entire review of the Constitution, because they started thinking about, we cannot wait until such time. First, they said the argument was about resources, And number two, 2 years, there is a 2 years period that you should not touch the laws, the electoral laws. So let us fish them out from the review, and then make sure that we pass them even before the 2028 election. So the two parties agreed that let us focus at this time. Let's focus on the amendment of this bill. But really, for us, that goes against the desire of the nation. You know, you heard what Mr. Gbani said. For a very long time, I've been on this. You yourself, you're into it. You talked about Peter Tucker, transition to Justice Kawan, and we are still here. We have not been able to have a brand new constitution that should have been able to address the many emerging issues since 1991. This is 2006, and we are still talking about the biggest law, the Supreme Law, which is dated as far back as 1991. You know, as a matter of fact, that 1991 constitution was actually an aftermath of the one-party state. Yeah. If you look at the 1978 constitution, you will see many of its relics into the 1991 constitution, and that is why we talk about too much concentration of power in the presidency. That was the source, because we are in a one-party state, and one-party state president was very, very powerful, and they wanted to continue to power. So when the 1991 constitution came in, you know, it did not actually so radically, if you like, change or alter that 1991 constitution.
But no president wants his powers to be reduced. Each one wants to enjoy his powers to the fullest.
Yes, so, laws are made to fit the people. Laws are made to serve the wider public. So they are not made having in mind who will be in power within this particular period of time, or who will be out of power. Laws should be made to protect everybody, whether you're in power or out of power. And that is what I've always called for. Particularly so those of you who are now in power. At any time you're given an opportunity when you're in power, that is the time you should make laws that should be able to protect you when you are out of power. Because power is transient. You can be in power for 10, 20, 30 years, but one day you must exit power. And you want the institutions that you have built to protect you. You want the laws that you have passed or enacted to protect you. So if you do not actually pass very good laws, the laws will not protect you. If you do not actually make sure that the institutions are empowered, those institutions will not protect you when you're out of power. So we have always called, for cool heads, to make sure that you have to make sure that you pass laws and empower institutions when you're in power. And again, I say to people all the time that Section 35 of the Constitution is so powerful. It makes sure that political parties are also members of the governance architecture of the country. It says that political parties must endeavor to shape the political will of its people. So it therefore means that opposing parties, we cannot have two political parties at the same time in State House, okay? But it does not exclude you from being in governance. So that is why you have to make sure, as a party in governance and maybe as a party waiting to take over power, you have to use your own space as an opposition party to be able to shape the political opinions of people. But look at what has just happened. Throughout these 2 weeks or 2 months, we never saw political parties going across the country trying to garner information or the opinions, of their people, of their members. We did not see that. All of the discussions, we are limited to just their secretariats, and not actually the very people at Abacha Street, Okada riders, at Afodu Park in Kenima, wherever in McKinney. They did not go and engage them. We did not see, political, whether at secretariat level of the political parties or even the members of parliament, going down to their constituents to get them involved, to get them to understand what is the procedure and what they are about to do. So, we have to understand that is on governance.
Okay.
We have to do more to make sure that we serve the people. And serving the people is by making sure we have good laws and making sure that we have very good institutions that will stand the test of time, that will always defend the cause of good governance.
Thank you very much, Victor. The program is Bottom Line from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation with me, Asimiba. We are going for a few seconds break. After the break, we are back.
Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31, with Asmi Uba.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV, the program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV.
We are back with the program Bottom Line from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation with me, Asmi Uba, coming to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Alfonso, let us look at another issue that came out of what happened on that day. Once the Speaker, Senator Thomas, gave his ruling, he further stated that he had referred the matter to the Supreme Court for its opinion. And a few hours later, on the Parliament's Facebook page, it was stated that the Speaker's reference to the Supreme Court was for future matters, not for this one. As far as he is concerned, his ruling is sacrosanct. No one changes what he had ruled on.
Of course, from my own understanding, the Supreme Court is not going to look at the decisions of the Parliament.
Why?
That is not sufficient. The Parliament itself is a whole entity of its own.
But it's under the law.
Yeah, it's under the law. What Supreme Court will look at, Supreme Court don't look at your decision. They are looking at statutory provisions, interpretation of the law. So what the Supreme Court is going to look at, the provision that these two parties are fighting.
Not the merit of the Speaker's ruling.
The Supreme Court is not going to look at the ruling.
But that is a bone of contention.
What is presented to the Supreme Court is for them for the Supreme Court to give an interpretation on the section, not on the decision. That is why the Speaker made it very clear. What you present to the court, even let's forget about the Supreme Court. What you take to court is what the court will look at. What you present to the court is what the court will look at. The court will not impute, will not be thinking of something that this is what you meant. It is what is presented before them, law, that they are going to look at. And so if what the Speaker presented to the court, that they should look at the interpretation of the provisions, that's what the court is going to look at. Except otherwise.
Do you have a contrary opinion to that?
Yes, I have been hearing these arguments here over and again. The lawyers have been making this point. But although my own position may not be so radically different from these positions that they have been holding, but then I want to draw people's attention to two provisions of the Constitution. 94, section 94, which gives the kind of power to Speaker or Parliament, as a body, that whatever they do cannot be inquired into by any court of law. So that is on one end. But then there is section 171, subsection 13. That subsection of section 171 gives the courts the power to inquire into where the Constitution places an obligation or a function on somebody or some authority, and it says to you that in the exercise of the duties or the functions of this authority or this person, that person is not subject to any other authority or any other body. So in the exercise of that authority, in the exercise of that function placed on you by the Constitution, that subsection 13 says that the court can inquire into that to see whether in the first place that you conducted whatever whether it's a decision or the function that you performed, whether you conducted it in consonance with the Constitution.
I think there was a judicial precedent on that. I mean, Seri Kamal and others. I think they were is it expelled or what as a result of absenteeism or so. And the APC, I think around 2000 or so, they took the matter to court, and the court said those who did what they did in Parliament acted ultra vires. I mean, they did not have the power. So I mean, the court squashed that issue, because what people are saying, a precedent had been set on that Parliament's action can go to court and the court can rule for or against it.
Well, you see, it's dicey. There might be. I would have to have the exact details of that matter that went to the Supreme Court by then. But I'm trying to.
The court went to the High Court. The High Court ruled, and then it went to the Appeals Court. The Appeals Court ruled against what the High Court had ruled.
And then it went to the Supreme Court.
I did not it stopped at the Appeals Court. Okay,
so when it has to do with constitutional matters, the interpretation of the Constitution, the High Court does not have any powers. The Court of Appeal does not have any powers. There's only one court, and that is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is considered as a constitutional court. It is the court of first instance and it is the last court as far as the interpretation of the Constitution is concerned. But then, whether that ruling of the Speaker can be inquired into, it's really a matter of the Supreme Court to determine that. But
from your legal understanding.
Hold on. Let me quickly end on this. Put in something. What we have not been able to discuss, or what I've seen people that have not discussed so far, is whether the bill itself, which is now law, which has been enacted, whether that simple majority, which the Speaker asked, was what determined the bill. Mark, you have just said, initially here, that questions were being put to members of Parliament in respect of provisions of the bill, portions of the bill. So, for instance, they were talking about search and nomination committee and also consultations. Okay, whether what the extant law says, what the current law says, the Constitution currently says, should be what it should be what we should go with, and not to change it to bring in search and nomination committee. So that was the question that they were discussing, that they were taking a vote on, and the vote actually went on. But after that, they had to come to the bill as a document. So we have to ask the question whether the bill itself, the bill now that has become law, whether it was a simple majority that determined it, or it was by two-thirds majority.
I don't think it was two-thirds.
Okay, why would you say? Well, that is the question we have to ask. So, okay, now let's look at it this way.
Did you know what the process in Parliament?
No, I follow, but
when two-thirds or simple majority?
We are giving out at some point. And the Speaker said everybody should go out. Okay, and then not too long they took the vote for the nomination and search committee. Thereafter, we saw members of APC parliamentarians coming out of the well, working out. So I did not have the opportunity again to continue to wait until everything, was concluded. But then, when I inquired, I was informed that after that stage, they continued, but because mark you, the business of Parliament has to go on because there is a quorum. Okay, the Constitution makes provision for 1/4 of the members of Parliament. So they said it continued, and a vote was taken on the bill. That all of them stood up when the question was asked whether, normally say the highest. Exactly. So they stood up, and then the clerk actually did head count. Okay. So indeed the bill was put up for vote, and they voted. They stood up, and then it was a count of. But the technicality is that whether those who remained would actually form two-thirds of members of Parliament. But then, what then is two-thirds of members of Parliament?
Is it those who were present, or the total membership of Parliament?
Total membership.
These are all legal questions.
Yes. So when you want to answer that question, you have to look at it from the perspective of context. For instance, all members of Parliament, we all know, are those who are elected by their political parties, or paramount chiefs, or by way of, as far as you are elected to come to Parliament. But then, if you look at the standing orders that they also use, because the Constitution makes provision for Parliament to be able to guide itself, to regulate itself, and by regulating itself, they can also make laws. They can make regulations. So one of the regulations is normally what they use, which is the standing orders. So standing order 44 it makes a provision that the Speaker has discretion to deduct members of Parliament who are not actually present when a vote is taken. But that is really when it has to do with state of emergency, in order to actually compute the 2/3 majority. So when Speaker deducts that or those members of Parliament, it therefore means that to compute 2/3 majority, it is the remaining number, and not necessarily all of those who have voted came to Parliament. It is the remaining number that will be considered as, computing 2/3 majority, and not the end. So again, even in constitution,
so these are all even bigger ramifications.
Yes. So you will see that even in the constitution, Section 30 makes provision for interpretation of the Chapter 3, which has to do with fundamental freedoms and human rights. So when you are doing a computation, you have to consider members of Parliament who are really actually alive, who are there, who are active, That is what you use to be able to compute. But Speaker has the discretion by Standing Order 44 to do a deduction. And once a deduction is done, a deduction can be done when there is an official excuse to say this member of Parliament has gone out of the jurisdiction on an official assignment. So once that note has been taken, and in this case, we are told that indeed when that vote was put to vote on the bill, and then it was announced that there are 2 members of Parliament that were absent, the clerk went to his office and came back with a record to show that indeed these people had taken excuse officially of the Speaker. They are out. So automatically the discretion would have arisen to say the Speaker would have now to deduct those 2 members or those 3 members, as the case may be, and then the number that remain would be the way to compute the 2/3. And members of Parliament, it's not just limited to APC and SLP. Okay? We've said members of, you said Parliament Chief said, yes, and also know that 2 members of APC and APC.
Mohamed Bango, Honorable.
Yes.
Honorable.
So the question then becomes, when APC walked out, but 2 of them remaining, and 3 did not come, when those 3 are deducted, the ones remaining, the 2 APC members, the SLP, I think they are 49 or so, and then the Parliament Chiefs, would they actually constitute 2/3? That's the question.
Wow.
So if
do you have an answer to that question? Alfonso, okay.
Let me just.
Alfonso, you want to add something here?
Yeah, I don't want to add the area of the 2/3. That the bill on 108, that the bill is supported on the 2nd and 3rd reading by the votes of not less than 2/3 of members of Parliament. The word is by 2/3 of members of Parliament. It is not clear whether the entire members of Parliament, whether you are in or out, or members of Parliament present. This even itself alone also creates confusion.
That's a gray area.
So that's why I said the body that is charged with the responsibility to interpret constitution is the appropriate body that the Speaker has referred it into. The Supreme Court has now the responsibility to look at what is this 2/3. Is it 2/3 of the entire members of Parliament to vote, or it is the 2/3 of members present?
But what impact is the ruling by the Supreme Court, or the opinion by the Supreme Court? What impact is that going to make when the bill had been passed?
We see.
Hold on, Alfonso.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the impact, the decision of the Supreme Court is going to set the judicial precedent. That's what I will always say. And I will give instance like what happened with the former president, the Samsonana case, of the decision of the Supreme Court in terms of the judicial precedent. We are going to wait. I don't want to preempt. I don't want to suggest, because the burden of responsibility rests on the Supreme Court, because that is their constitutional mandate.
Okay, yes, Victor.
Yes, Mr. Agbani talks about the judicial precedent. Yes, I agree. I agree that whatever the Supreme Court would have to put out by way of a judgment or a ruling, will be declarative, and it will actually be the position that Parliament will then have to advise itself going forward. because they cannot now actually overturn the ruling, of the Speaker, which has now led to law.
Don't the Supreme Court have that power? To overturn the decision by a Speaker of Parliament? I'm not referring to this Speaker, I'm only saying, does the Supreme Court have any power to overturn a decision by Parliament, especially by the Speaker of Parliament?
Okay, except in a situation where it depends. So that is the first thing I would say. It depends. It depends, meaning it can overturn, the Supreme Court can overturn if it has to do with a situation where Parliament is given a function to perform, and that function should be performed without the interference of any body or any authority. So the Supreme Court will have to come in to see whether that function that the Constitution places on Parliament has been performed, in compliance with the procedure that should be used. So if that's the situation, then the Supreme Court has the power to intervene and then can overturn.
Is it not a similar situation that the country has found itself now?
Well, it's similar, but it's not so exactly. Because what Section 171.13 actually does is to limit the powers of the Supreme Court in terms of what it can do in relation to the works of Parliament. And then Section 94.2 is very clear to say no court can inquire into any act done by Parliament or is a committee of Parliament or the Speaker. That one is very exclusive, okay, very clear.
So even if that act contravenes the country's constitution?
Well, that's the point. So I've just said it now depends if the act done is in respect of functions placed on Parliament. The Supreme Court will want to know whether in first place they follow the due procedure as prescribed by the Constitution or any other law. That is what 171.3 and 13 says. Okay. So we would expect that going forward, not just Parliament, but by the way, for us to better understand this, the President had appointed the ECSL boss, okay, and this bill came, and this bill actually sought to find a way in which the issue of consultation can be resolved. So they presented the Search and Nomination Committee. Okay, so let's assume that that Parliament would have accepted the Search and Nomination Committee. That would not have affected what the President the appointment already. That will now be for successive Parliament. Okay, that is what it means actually. So that it will be the same thing for Supreme Court. Yes, I guess.
Okay. I think there is one principle in law that says Parliament cannot bind its successors. They are legal by law.
Well, you see,
for example, the Parliament cannot make a law to say future Parliament will not change that law.
Well, you see, by the way, who is Parliament? You have to understand that, because I also hear a lot of people talk about.
You think we have enough time to go into that?
People talk about.
I think we'll leave
teasing and so. But just quickly, you see, the Constitution makes provision.
We have less than 5 minutes to go.
Okay, the composition of Parliament. Parliament usually consists of the President,
the
Speaker, and members of Parliament. Okay, so you will have to bring the entire nation down if you want to actually begin to inquire into all of that. By the way, what has been enacted has still not become law
until the President
signs off, and then it is published in the Gazette.
Okay, I was going to come to that before we round off this program. Other sections of society are calling on the President not to give his assent to this bill.
To be kind enough, I don't think the President will even listen to that because what they want, and he's the President, even though he's the President, but it's also coming from the ruling party. They are following probably what is prescribed in the Justice Kawan Constitutional Review Committee report to ensure that we have a proportional representative system. So I don't see any reason that the President will not assent it.
So do you think there is a way out of this political impasse between the SIV and the APC?
Yeah, there's a way. We just have to be sincere. Let us go back to the Justice Kawan Constitutional Review Committee and discuss it and see whether what they are discussing, why they are making this disagreement, if it's not part of it. There are some of us will even tell the SIPP government that no, let's forget about this thing. But if it is there, then I think we need to move forward and understand which type of PR system do we need. I think that's is the second debate that we need to discuss. Now they have introduced the PR system to be our electoral system. Now, which type of PR now? That should be the discussion between the APC and all other political parties in this country, including everyone, including us, me seated here. That should be the discussion.
You know, you initially asked Mr. Agbami as to what benefits is APC looking out for in first past the post and what benefit is SLD looking out for in PR. So the arguments I have listed have followed. On one hand, APC believes that with first past the post, I know they can always have, for instance, in the western area, they will always sweep, you know, almost, I mean, every seat in the western area. And there is always the argument of direct implementation. But on the other hand, SLD is arguing that how come every electoral circle from 1996 to date will have a minimum of 35% of the valid vote cast. But when you translate that into number, it will give you more than 200,000 of Freetonians, 200,000 of the population of Freetown. Yet they will have no member of parliament under the first past the post. So you see where the whole thing is? Yeah, so APC wants to continue to dominate, you know, parliament in the western area. SLPP wants to come and have a representation in the western area in parliament. So that is why, I mean, these are two horns that have been locked, and it is very difficult for you to separate them. Wow. Very difficult for you to separate them because there is a political consideration.
So before we go, Victor, is it a clash between politics and the law?
No, the law that I said to you that anybody who intends to disabuse or disengage politics from the law, it's not possible. The person is a simple thinker. Because it's not possible in the first place. Who makes laws? Politicians make laws. Politicians make laws. So how would you now, you know, distinguish politics or divorce? That was the word I was looking out for. Divorce politics from law or law from politics. It's not possible. We can only manage so that both of them will coexist. For the, I mean, in the interest of people, of the general populace. Okay. Other than that, you cannot divorce, you cannot distinguish politics from law at all.
There is no clash between politics and law. There is only clash between SLPP and APC.
Well, thank you very much, Johnson. But before I go, few messages from our Facebook page. This one's I'll read this first one. We don't allow such messages. One says anything involves amendments of the Constitution, votes should be 2/3 of the members of Parliament. This other one says you can't amend the Constitution by simple majority. Well, bottom line only came to you because of the capable hands of my colleagues behind the scenes. Well, a special thanks to my team of camera and studio operators. I say thank you for watching and joining us. Join us again next week for another edition of Bottom Line. I have been your host and presenter Asmiba. Till we meet again next week. God bless you. Goodbye.
Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every